Prince Harry is set to return to the UK next month for the first time in 90 months on the anniversary of the late Queen's death.
It is claimed this morning that he will meet King Charles after relations began to thaw following an informal sort of peace summit between palace officials.
Yeah, Prince William is said to reject any reconciliation with his younger brother, but time to draw a line under the royal rift, or has too much damage been done? Jack Royston, who's chief royal correspondent for Newsweek, says the royals can and should find a pathway through, whilst royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliam says there's no trust to build a foundation on at all. Why is there no trust? Why do you say it's over and it should continue to be over?
Well, I think, firstly, of course, reconciliation in theory is absolutely fine, but you've got to look at what underpins this. How about privacy and dignity, which your reporter referred to, neither of which exist at the moment? Just look at this week, for example. There was Meghan saying how inauthentic she was as a member of the royal family when she was working on Bloomberg. Look back in May, and in fact, Harry had a half-hour ramble on the BBC where he was attacking his father, and also courtiers he believed were plotting against him. Look back 20 months when they met last. Harry flew over, of course, when he heard his father had cancer. And in fact, after they met, he was on Good Morning America. So you really have to see, before you have any genuine reconciliation, and remembering Oprah, remembering the Spare memoir, and also, of course, remembering their docuseries for Netflix, which is keen for them to do more royal work. So you've got to have some form of trust. By all means, meet. But as far as reconciliation is concerned, and as far as actually trusting the Sussexes, they've got to earn it, and they most certainly haven't so far.
Well, Jack, I mean, that sense of a lack of trust, maybe Prince Harry also argues is there on his side in some ways, because of the things he talked about in his book. But certainly our viewers are absolutely 50-50 on this, and a strong proportion saying that any conversation between Harry and King Charles that they feel will just be exploited in some way. It's sad that we've come to this, isn't it?
Oh, it's hugely sad, absolutely. And I just want to really emphasise, I do not think that Charles has to forgive Harry, and I don't think he even has to forget. I think actually the path to moving on is to simply stop talking about all of those incredibly difficult subjects that built the rift in the first place. But I think the reason why the king really does need to try to reconcile with Harry is because part of the role of the royal family is to kind of show leadership and to lead by example. And families across Britain will have had their own wounds, their own rifts, their own arguments. And it would be hugely beneficial to the monarchy if Charles could basically show the public that it is possible to heal, and that, you know, optimism still exists. It's a very pessimistic world at the moment, and that people can fix even really deep-seated problems that are there for genuine reasons. You know, this isn't a made-up drama. And, you know, there are very, very difficult feelings on both sides. I think Harry is probably the one pushing reconciliation at the moment, whereas Charles has been focusing on his health, on fighting cancer. But I think if he can find space to just try to have a really simple conversation with Harry that isn't an argument, it doesn't go badly, it doesn't stir up negative emotions, then I think over, you know, probably years, not months, I think they could probably rebuild some trust. And don't forget that part of the reason...
absolutely must not lower the step by step. What's absolutely essential is that any reconciliation happens behind closed doors, because what's also at stake here, one of the reasons for this, the Sussexes are not doing well financially at all, as far as we can see. Certainly Harry's been chucked out of Centre Bali in extremely unfortunate, toxic circumstances, and also we've had Meghan roasted over her second with Love Meghan, and on top of that, a lot rests on, as ever, to keep them afloat. But the facts are she doesn't seem to be doing more podcasts, and also what is Meghan's role in future reconciliation? So far as Invictus is concerned, a lot is resting on what happens, because the royal family have been asked to the 2027 Birmingham Invictus. Now, will King Charles go, or will he, in fact, be represented, which would be perfectly in line with his position as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, because it's a very fine charity. The facts of the matter are, however, that the Sussexes cannot dictate what happens. What happens must happen if there is reconciliation behind closed doors and showing privacy. And if you look at that track record, it's terrible, as you've admitted.
Jack, there are trust issues here, aren't there? I mean, here you have somebody in the form of the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, who has had private conversations, private, most personal and intimate encounters with his brother and his dad, and he's gone and sold them for profit. Now, I asked our panel earlier whether there's any amount of money in the world where you would do that to a relative, least of all a member of the royal family. And given that's the case, it's really hard to see how or even if the king should forgive him. Certainly we know that William isn't ready to.
I don't necessarily think that the king should forgive him. It's not about forgiveness. It's about the capacity to move on and rebuild. And I don't think the trust will ever fully return. But the other thing that is on the side of reconciliation here, if Charles can kind of see through the noise, is that actually the biggest reason why Harry and Meghan can't attack the monarchy anymore is because they destroyed themselves by doing it so much, so repeatedly during times
wait a
of
minute, you've got...
and so they've effectively spiked their own guns at this stage, which means they don't really pose a threat to the monarchy anymore, because if they start doing that again, they'll tank themselves.
You say that they can't attack the monarchy anymore, but that isn't the case. Netflix, in point of fact, are encouraging them to do more royal work. There's talk of a Diana documentary. What might that include? They most certainly have the possibility in this open-ended new Netflix contract of doing precisely that, and that could be hovering over all of this. The facts are, if it goes badly, and remember, you mentioned apologies. Well, in point of fact, it's Harry who wants the royals to apologise. He hasn't talked about that recently.
While we're at it, the royal family are overstretched. It seems both of you see a purpose in the royal family. They do good work. We know that they are stretched. Princess Anne was 75 a couple of weeks ago.
Very hard-working.
Very hard-working royal, and there's not that many of them left. Can you see very quickly, Richard and Jack, a way back potentially for the Duke of Sussex if there is reconciliation?
Oh, yes, certainly I can, because if in fact they do not leak to the press over the coming, say, couple of years, if in fact things are conducted with the dignity and privacy they should be, and if in fact they manage to reach out quietly, this is a completely different situation. Regarding William, the things may have gone too far. We'll have to see. But remember, it's a question essentially of trust. And if you have a symbiotic relationship with the media, and if you monetize your connections with the royal family so brutally, and remember, they made Queen Elizabeth's last years extremely difficult. The royal family haven't forgotten what was happening when Prince Philip was ill and Oprah went out. I mean, it was deeply destructive and also had a worldwide effect. The Sussexes have got a brand, but the point is, how will they use that brand, and will we see what we've seen before, and that is these attacks and the use of the media monetizing royal connections or leaking issues to their advantage.
You made that point. Just let Jack come back on it.
Yeah, I can't see Harry and Meghan coming back as working royals. William definitely doesn't want it. I don't think Meghan wants it either. I could see Harry wanting it. I don't think he'll get it. I don't think it would be a good idea. It would only be possible if they closed down all of their profit-making enterprises in America. I can't see that happening in a million years. I personally, for what it's worth, think there's a good chance that as ever, will be commercially successful when she gets it right, which she hasn't quite yet, but I think the wine is probably a good start. I think that if that is a success and that it carries on for the foreseeable future, that definitively rules out a return to royal duties, because you can't have a situation where they're advertising their businesses by working for the state of Britain.
Well, that would be absurd.
Some healing. We're hopeful. I'm sure we'll return to this, because we'd all love to see some healing for all their sakes, on every level, actually, from the hurts of the past. But good to speak to both of you this morning. We did ask you at home, is it time to draw a line under the royal rift? That's shifted slightly, actually. 48% said yes, it is. 52% said no. It was the other way around earlier on, so people are still very much on the fence.